months ago. So
fingers crossed we're live on Facebook. I think so. I know we're live on YouTube, but Facebook these days, who knows? And it's a rare thing I'm actually on the camera when I'm not being interviewed. We're going to be talking about today. The whole point of today is what we do right now. Going on live streams, talking to people. Brian K. Morris is with us. We're hoping to have a few other people. We had one person who had to step out because they're not feeling well. I mean, that happens. Someone hurt their back. I understand that. They pulled it. But me and Brian could probably talk about this all day on the different topics that it is. One of the things I want to talk about right now is scenery. Let's start off the show with when we do go live, we have to show things off. And I know you've put a lot of thought into what's behind you.
Yeah. Previously, I had, once I started using my writing office as my backdrop, I started populating the areas behind me with, art that I liked looking at. And now that I'm looking at expanding my platform into YouTube to keep up with you cool kids, I started taking down some of the artwork that I didn't quite have the rights to. Stuff that was trademarked. Everything you see behind me, I basically have it's original, and I have permission to use it from the IP owner. Some of which is me. So yeah, I did do a thorough scrub of the things behind me, and one day I'll get sexy enough to do green screen, and then I can pick and choose how I want the background to look. But yeah, we did use a great deal of discretion, kind of looking down the road. So,
and Meredith will be with us in just a few minutes. She's just grabbing lunch real quick. And
chew carefully, Meredith. Chew carefully. It's very important.
You remember when I hurt my throat eating the Cheerios right behind it, right before the show. Hurt my throat. The dumbest thing ever. Coughed and sneezed at the same time. I couldn't do shows for 2 weeks. I thought I was going to have surgery. I hurt myself so bad. But please, Meredith, be careful.
Yes, please.
So now you say things about copyright. Do you really think that's an issue someone needs to take serious? Because I'm with you with copyrights. You know that. But I'm just saying in things behind them, because, I mean, a lot of people do show clips from shows. And I think the clip rule, if it has not changed, was 5 seconds. You get 4 to 5 seconds of something and you won't get demonetized. Right. So you show, like, basically, as it's really called, a GIF, not a GIF. And we're being joined right now by, and I don't know if you know Brian K. Morris. Do you know Hanging with the Web Show?
I don't think we know each other. Hello.
Actually, hi, everybody. Hi,
hello.
We are friends on
Hi,
Facebook,
Brian. Yes, I know Brian knows a lot of our traveling TARDIS people, our Legend of the Traveling TARDIS crew. So
that's right, I do. How you guys doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. We are crazy making love and life right now, as much as we can be, given our self-imposed quarantine. So
now that's actually normally I don't allow us to talk about the quarantine on these panels because we want, thank you, honey. My son's home with me handing me a Kit Kat. Kit Kat now comes in birthday cake. I'm being forced to eat. Here, you eat it for me. So this one show, I think, talking about the quarantine really matters because everything we're doing right now is to entertain the audience. Mm-hmm. So for those of you watching this in a few months and wondering why we're talking about quarantine, and hopefully we found the cure and you all think we're silly for staying inside, because there was a cure next week after they filmed this, and we all hope that. But for now, we really do want to talk about how we can entertain you guys. And we were talking about right before you guys all got on, and welcoming Meredith too.
Hello, Meredith.
Hey, Meredith.
We're all here now, so we could do the cool intro thing. And we're also talking about what we do to put things behind us to entertain. And I know Hanging with the Web Show and everyone introducing ourselves, we'll also talk about what you do to set up for the shows. And we'll start with, I guess we'll start with me since I'm on this panel too, because everything I do. My name is Rob AnderSiN. I am an indie and underground creator, and I'm known as the indie underground devil because I'll tempt you with my tales. But I'm also known as an indie advocate because I spend a lot of time advocating for other people. And I do so for no profit on anything I do this way. I do profit from my comic books, don't get me wrong. But I try to help everyone I can, and I try to do right by everyone. And I think all my panelists on the show today are the same exact type. They're always looking out for people, and I'm very honored to be surrounded with such amazing creators today. And with that in mind, I'm going to pass it off to Brian K. Morris so he can introduce himself. We'll go to full screen of Brian K. Morris because I'm just not pretty enough for it.
And I am. Okay, anyway, thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. I'm Brian K. Morris, independent publisher of comics and regular books. I'm also an award-winning playwright, freelance hybrid author, and former mortician's assistant. I publish through Rising Tide Publications, my publication arm. And I also do before the C word or the Q word started, Q word, I did 3 Facebook live shows a week. Now I am on practically so much that I'm practically a reality show. And we're looking to do more because there's something seriously wrong with me. But frankly, I'm honored to be here as well. As far as my backdrop goes, I am currently in my writing office, something I set up after I moved here about 3.5 years ago. And it's made up of images that I own the rights to, or I've been given permission to use by the artist or the IP owner. And I have one spot up here that I will be selling advertising for, so look out. But I did this because my eventual goal is to move what I do to YouTube, particularly in the way of instruction. And I wanted stuff that I couldn't get hit by a copyright strike by. So a lot of planning went into how I constructed my background here. So, and everything else is just branding. So next.
We're missing someone from Hanging with the Web Show suddenly. I only see
Sage is working diligently on our latest project right now. Hi everybody, I'm GW Pomacher. I am an author and the producer, director, and host of the Hanging with Web Show, and the producer of HWWS Web TV, where we distribute online content from other content creators in hopes of building a larger audience for everyone. Wow, that's me. That's who I am. Sage is the arm, that arm right there in the corner, which is diligently working while I'm doing what I do. We specialize in going where creative artists go. We are on the road probably 90% of the year. We attend comic conventions, author conferences, film festivals, music festivals. We go where the artists are so that we can put them in the chair, interview them, and talk about what they do and how they do it. We want it to be sort of the answer to the growth in mainstream media. When things grow to be as large as, say, the modern Tonight Show, one of the first things that happens is that time is limited, growth is big. So what happens is, if you want to be on Jimmy Kimmel Live, you have to be the top of your A game. You've already got to be Harrison Ford. But the question arose to us, how do you get to be Harrison Ford if there's no place to promote you? So we set up shop promoting independent and smaller brand creators across the internet, kind of in the same way that Johnny Carson did in the early 70s, or Jack Parr. You go back further than that, Ed Sullivan. We give you a place where you can learn on your way up, and that's what we specialize in right now. And we'll talk a little bit more in the broadcast about it. We are in the midst of in response to the COVID-19 threat and the self-quarantining and the safe-at-home policies that are in place, we are organizing a 100% free, 100% online, safe space, CyberCon 2020. It will be all of the content that you would get at a weekend convention, packed into about a 56-hour live broadcast that will start on Friday, April 17th, and will not end until 6 p.m. on Sunday, April 19th. And for all of those hours, we are gathering content creators, hosts, podcasters, artists, musicians, people who want to perform and entertain our audience. We have partnered with some amazing online partners, including NSC Live TV. Rob Anderson here from Indie Advocates has agreed to come on and do some things. And we're basically going to throw an online convention complete with a virtual vendors floor. on the Facebook page, where our virtual vendors will be set up as admins on our page so that they can run simultaneously broadcast live auctions and peddle their wares, because we know that they can't get out to the conventions, and many of them can't even get out to their own shops. So we're going to provide that space. Any funds that we raise from that side of things, the vendor side of things, will be donated 100%, every single penny, to the Center for Disaster Philanthropies COVID-19 Relief Fund. They're an online charity that is working right now to help get ventilators and masks and the things that COVID-19 responders need into those places where they need to go. So we're going to be donating 100% of every dime raised on our vendors floor to charity. And again, there is no cost to fans and friends and people who want to come and watch. That is 100% free. So enjoy 56 hours of nonstop entertainment. And I will pass it on to the next person, and we'll chat after that.
Hey guys.
Hi, Meredith.
I'm Meredith. Hi, I'm Meredith Lockman, and I'm with Geek Insider. And piggybacking off of what he said, Geek Insider is actually doing a Geek Out Virtual Con, and that is going to be the week before. So that is April 11th through 12th, and it's a 2-day event. Right now, we've got limited hours, so but we're getting more and more people who are coming on to be hosts. Rob's one of them. Christian Basil from the Traveling TARDIS podcast will be there as well. And that is also a free event because we are supporting our indie people, and we want to give them a platform to post their stores, post their content. We're going to have door prizes. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we're just going to have people coming in and out. Originally, we thought about having separate alleys where it was a time frame for just comic book writers and an alley, just the time frame for the writers and the cosplayers and things like that. And then we said, you know what? Let's just do random, so when people come in, you don't know who you're going to get, and hopefully you make new connections doing it that way. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That's April 11th through 12th. That's Easter weekend, but I didn't think that was going to be a big deal because I kind of have a captive audience anyway. So this is all online. But going back to the subject with the background, my background is the hot mess. It's a work in progress, but I graduated from a black sheet because I had to rearrange my office and try and get into quiet space. So eventually I'm going to be getting maybe a green screen. I'm hoping maybe some shelves on the bottom and have some knickknacks and things like that, because you can see my Deadpool mug up there with my Rubik's Cube and a few other knickknacks. And I'm just kind of housing this space. So right now this is a hot mess. This is not an indication. And I want to speak to Rob about this too, because the presentation behind you, I think, is a good reflection of what your show is going to be like. So I do have a live stream that's coming up Sundays at 5. That is Lady Geek Live. And that's going to be on our Facebook page. And we also have a podcast. And that's also being basically recorded ahead of time and shared on YouTube, and then edited some more and put onto iTunes. And that pretty much does it for me.
One of the things I will say about the background is I hate being on camera. I like the focus to be on anyone but me when it comes to advocating. I mean, not necessarily when I'm being interviewed. I think it's important to be on. But I'm not a person who likes being on. So, and I started the program this way, but especially with Jax being home and all that, for the most of the videos, people are more used to seeing something like this, or seeing the other one, or seeing this. I use my green screen to actually get rid of me and put up something as an advertisement, because I want people to focus on you guys. And plus, again, because I'm in the background, I'm typing to people, I'm kind of producing this as I go. My job is mostly the moderator for these conversations. So I'm going to back out right now and just be the voice because I like that. And I was always told I have the voice and the looks for radio, and I always took that as a compliment till I grew up and figured out what they were saying. But I don't mind using my voice to advocate for people, and that's what all of you do. And we're waiting for Varian and Randy to show up from Indie Vault. They have not shown up yet, so they'll come in at one point. Hopefully, Randy or Varian will represent Indie Vault. But for the meantime, we're going to continue on. Why do you guys advocate for people? Because each one of you advocate for people, and there is no order. Anyone can jump in this. What makes you guys give up your time? Because the time you're all giving up will never monetize to what you've given up. Maybe later in your life, you'll be respected more. Maybe you'll get some sort of opportunity, but everything you've done will not be rewarded with the time. And we see a lot of people come and go that try to do what every one of you is doing. And it's interesting because you all do it a different way. And I think that's amazing. So what inspires you guys to do what you do? And why advocate for someone else and not yourself?
Okay, I'll take it.
You're it.
I'm it. Okay. Well, I started my broadcast, never mind the furthermore, about 4 years ago. And originally it was intended to be a vehicle for my rampaging ego. But as I started looking at the comments that were scrolling on Facebook Live, I realized that, I started having a conversation with the people who were there already. And we got into the conversation. I realized, I'm not the only person doing really interesting things. And so it became more of a conversation, more helping other people, because I do believe in karma. I got so many attaboys and so much help when I went into doing this full time after losing my job 8 years ago. And through it, I've met a whole lot of incredible people like Rob, like you guys. And I've learned a whole bunch of new different skills, such as, promoting every chance you get and, things like that. And I love promoting my friends because I know so many cool people through what I do that, one, I want to bring people with me so that we can hit the restaurants together. And it's not like I don't slip in my own stuff too. Hi, Teresa. How you doing? It's not like I don't slip in, my own attaboys and my own different promotions. But, I also want to keep up with some of the terrific people I'm helping at the same time. So, and it makes me happy to see my friends get ahead. I have one friend, Rick Bradley, who I met him at a convention last fall, and he expressed interest in becoming a writer. Well, Brian says you still have a rampaging ego. Yes, I do. Anyway, Anyway, my friend Rick Bradley wanted to be a professional writer like myself and many of my friends. And within 6 months after listening to us and taking some advice, he got his first published story out. Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Seriously, I feel so paternal. But anyway, it's, and that's one of the things I found, that the more positive energy I sent out, the more it came back. Most major religions have something in their doctrines about sending positivity out and having it multiplied and returning to you. So, that's why I renamed my company. It was originally called Freelance Words, and after I realized finally how this karma thing was working out, that's when I renamed it Rising Tide, based on an old quote that President John F. Kennedy used to use a lot about a rising tide raises all ships. And I've seen that in business. I've seen it so often in many other situations. And so that's why I talk about Rising Tide, not just as my company, but also as a philosophy that has gotten me where I am, such as it is, and it's working for other people. So that's why I advocate the way I do.
If I could, I'm going to camp on to exactly what he said. The President Kennedy quote is a firm example. What we tell all of our community is a bastardization of that quote, which is all boats rise together. You can spend a lot of time sitting on the dock with a jacking up your own boat, getting it as high as you can. But what we want people to do is be a part of the storm. so that the waters will rise and we will all rise together. And that is, stop wasting your time, because no matter how hard you try, you will not jack up your boat high enough on your own. You need the tide to rise. You need to be a part of the storm. And that's why we would do what we do as well. I just like Brian said, I started doing what we do right now as an homage to my ego. I was a published author. I wanted to sell books, and I realized very quickly my background is in journalism, and I realized very quickly that artists and filmmakers and indies of all kinds didn't get press. And it's not because the media is evil or anything like that. It's because there's a limited amount of space in a newspaper. There's a limited a number of hours in a day for a broadcaster on the radio, etc. And those things are filled with, there are guys in suits, the proverbial bean counters. And those guys are filled with time that they spend figuring out what will draw the biggest audience to what they're doing. And the reality is that me and Brian and all of us, we're not the answer to their numbers question. So, back when broadcast and radio first started, they didn't need an answer to those numbers questions because nobody had a TV. They were building one customer at a time. Nowadays, they already have an audience. They need to keep it pinned in. So what we decided was we can go back to those broadcast days because there's enough technology on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch and these platforms. There's enough technology so that we can go backwards in time and we can introduce that broadcast content. The days when Ed Sullivan you would have circus performers juggling and spinning plates. When you look back at those days, you say, okay, today you have to be Harrison Ford to get on a Jimmy Kimmel show. However, in those days, you went on to Ed Sullivan's show as some kid from Tennessee. And when you woke up Monday morning, you were the king of rock and roll. And so we want to be a part of that paradigm shift using internet media as a new paradigm for broadcast. And so we were able to help me and other authors. Just like Brian, I have a similar story. I interviewed an author on the show. He was sitting off to the side of my studio. I interviewed a publisher from a small press publishing house who happens to be an author in his own right. It was Kevin J. Anderson, who runs Wordfire Press and is a Bain-published New York Times bestselling author. Kevin sat on my show. Kevin walked away from his interview with us and met with this other young author, a self-published indie author, and they had a conversation. And a month later, I got an email thanking the show saying, I just signed my first publishing contract with Wordfire Press. And I said, if I never make a dime, if I never do anything else, that email will keep me riding high for the rest of my life. I made an introduction on the set of the show that did, that made somebody's life better and started their career. I have not got that contract yet. If Kevin is watching, I have not got my letter yet. But I do love to help everybody else out. Everybody talked about their backdrops. I'm so proud of our particular backdrop here, Rob and Brian and Melinda. If any of you have seen us travel on a convention site, I have a beautiful set that I take and set up under a canopy with our lights and everything. It looks very similar to this. It's a brick wall. We have what we call the another brick in the wall program, where if you sit in the chair and you do an interview, you get to sign the wall. We've got signatures from celebrities. We've got signatures from authors, artists, filmmakers. But I was in my home studio and I didn't have a wall, and I wanted one. My office in my home, actually, I have the world's smallest apartment with the world's largest bedroom. It is much like the inside of the TARDIS. I don't know how they got this in here. So I split my bedroom in two, and this half is our office and that half is our bedroom. So to divide it, I built this artificial backdrop that has this beautiful Josh Bauer art painting on it. This is another Josh Bauer piece. So our backdrops would match when we were on set or when we were in studio. You'll never be able to tell the difference other than the shape of the room, as it were. And but what's interesting is I realized very quickly that when I built this wall that I was cutting off my bedroom from my television, which all of you are pop culture geeks. You understand that this is not a good thing that just happened. So my son, who happens to be our resident technical support, produce this for us so that we can actually open our set in the evenings and look at our television set still. So we are very proud of our ingenious solution, as it were, to that problem. So anyway, guys, that's why we do what we do. We do what we do to be surrounded by the wonderful creative artists that are here in this community and to help them rise. And I feel blessed. We started organizing this CyberCon event within 4 days. The CyberCon page, which was just posted on Wednesday, 3 days, excuse me, on Wednesday, has reached 1,000 likes, 1,000 fans, followers, whatever it is, in a matter of 3 days, and is still growing exponentially. People are interested in getting out there and doing what they do. I think artists genuinely, look, we're gonna do this stuff. We're all gonna sit here and do this stuff, whether anybody's watching or not. So we might as well do it together, and at least we'll watch each other. And if we fail, we'll fail in style, like Buzz Lightyear. We'll fall in style. And if we don't, then we might be able to help a few people along the way. And I really think that's, the reason for doing what we do. On to the next one, please. Oh my God, please rescue me. I'm dry. I need a drink.
I'll take this one because Meredith just had some puppies get excited because their daddy got home.
I understand.
So a lot of people always ask me, why did I start doing the advocating thing? And believe it or not, it was because I blew up my back and I was spending too much time talking about politics online. And I was told I needed to find something positive to do. And I was already into indie comics and I was already talking to creators. And I was like, why don't I try to help other people? And for those who don't know, I have a back injury that leaves me in constant pain. Every minute of my life, I'm in some sort of pain somewhere. My little son's in the background, enjoying his life, jumping around. So it sounds like we're at a con. So I'm in pain every day of my life. And I found out that if I could focus on doing something positive every day, then no matter how bad the pain is, because there's some days I'm in so much pain I can't write. There's nothing creative coming out of me, but I can still advocate for someone. I can still share something. I can still make something that helps promote somebody. And if I do that, then my life mattered that day, because I don't feel like I'm missing out on all the things I could be doing because I'm doing something that's helping someone. And there's nothing better in life than helping someone. So that's actually how I got into advocating. And there are days where we see bad people come out from the woodwork and you kind of wonder why you're doing it. But then you get that one message of, thank you, you helped me fund my Kickstarter, and it all makes sense. And you're like, you know what? I get why I'm doing what I do. So I love being an advocate, and I'm going to be a great advocate for the underground comics because I'm going to start helping them out too. So I'm not going to take up much more time because I talk enough. I'm going to pass on to Meredith, and hopefully the dogs have calmed down by now.
Yeah, they're being quiet right now. I don't have a raging ego. I mean, if you had told me a couple of years ago that I would be in front of the camera talking to people live, I would have said you're out of your damn mind. But for me, I come more from a psychology foundation, I want to say, because, I'm a big fan of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And once you have all of those base needs taken care of and understanding what your needs are versus your wants, then when you personally get into a comfortable position, then you can look outward and help other people and go, hey, I might not be where I want to be right now, but I'm maybe further along than somebody else. And if I can ease the path for somebody else who's behind me on that ladder, then that's where I want to be. And that's where I feel that my strength is. And that's what motivates me to advocate for other people. And unfortunately, I think that might be a personality flaw as well, because there are times where, I would probably drown trying to help somebody. That's just the way I am. And that is not healthy either. So I'm a work in progress. I'm always looking for people to hang out with, like you guys, where I'm learning, and I get a certain amount of mentorship, because I hate to sound like I have an ego, because I really don't feel like I do. But if I'm hanging out with people who don't know crap, I'm not going to learn from anything. I'm not going to learn anything from them. So I really strive to be around people who I can find mentorship with, and then eventually become a peer, and then become a friend and a mentor to others. And so it's this whole cycle, and it never ends. We should all strive to be better. And when you reach that point of being comfortable, then it's time to look out and help other people. And that's where I come from.
Now, we do have a comment question, and this is from Ted Davies. And for those who are watching, understand that I'm not getting all the comments. Facebook's been dealing with a lot of technical issues. So if you're leaving a comment and we can't see it and we don't get to it, please just go over to our YouTube channel, which has been way more reliable with comments over the last couple of days. So Ted Davies asks, Brian K. Morris, and this goes to everyone, what are your thoughts on rising distribution for indies by indies? Maybe a group of us creating a distro for all of us to build sales. So he's basically asking you if there's a way that we could do Diamond. I'll just chime in quickly. Working together won't help that. It's promoting together that will help that. Distribution has to be done by yourself. Adding a middleman is always going to make things more expensive. But I'll leave it up to you guys. And Brian, you can go first because this was a direct ask for you.
Okay, first of all, thanks, Ted. That's an excellent question. If you're wondering if indie creators could set up a diamond distributing of their own, per se, I would say it's possible. It has been attempted in the past. There was a group called Cold Cut Distributing that tried this about 20 years ago, and eventually it ran out of steam. I could see where maybe somebody with a flair for reaching to the shops and saying, okay, would you like to carry our wares, and here's a decent discount, etc., etc. That might emerge one day. But I'm thinking for now, I agree with Rob that we are our best salespeople. And that's why it's important for us to step beyond the way outdated notion that because we're artistic, that that promotion is beneath us, that we have to be a little bit of a carny barker of sorts, or at least be able to represent our brand because we're proud of what we do. And that's why it's important for us to go out into the world and do personal appearances, have a social platform where we're interacting with the people that support us. And that's one of the things I'm thinking right now, personally, the one place where we all ought to be is, frankly, crowdfunding. Because I did a crowdfunding campaign 2 years ago. That's where I met Rob. And this way we have a direct link to the people who want to support us. And that's why there's a whole bunch of other promotional things we can do, such as assembling a mailing list, etc. But I think for the immediate future, I agree with Rob that it is going to depend on all of us individually and our network, our peers, as Meredith said, that we need to look out for each other, and that way we all get taken care of.
Yeah, I just want to just jump in there and piggyback off of what you said, because unfortunately, a lot of creative souls don't have a marketing bone in their body. And I don't know why. I can't even tell you how many people I've asked. I said, you want to just come on for a couple of minutes and say hi? Oh, I don't do the camera thing. Okay. But you don't want to talk either, Why is that so hard? And I think there's that bit of shyness that's out there. And I have to tell you guys, relax, don't take yourself so seriously. It's okay, because if you're live streaming, chances are you're going to make a fool of yourself at some point. And you gotta laugh about it. You have to get over it, okay? I mean, every day I keep myself humble because I'm always doing something stupid. And the beautiful thing and the curse about it of social media is that it's all online. Everybody sees it. Everybody takes a snapshot, and it's out there. And you know what? If you can't laugh at it, then you're done. You might as well just hang up your hat, hang up your fez, right?
Yeah.
I can only echo what they've already said, other than to say, first of all, as they pointed out, everyone is their own best salesman. You are passionate about what you do. if you speak to people, to shop owners, to media, to everybody with the same passion with which you do what you do, you can't not sell a product. You just have to learn to tap into that passion. And in answer to the fullness of that question, I think it was Brian that pointed out, these types of things do rise up on occasion, these cooperative groups for distribution and things like that. There's one of two ways that they end up. One is they fall apart. The weight of distributing so many people's stuff to so many places breaks them, or they end up becoming small press distributors in and of themselves. And again, for a lot of indie creators, one of the appeals of there are two ways to kind of go indie. One is you jump into this full force as an indie. The other is you explore traditional publishing, traditional companies, small press, big press, and you choose indie. And one of the greatest reasons that some of our indie creators choose indie is because the benefit of their product, however large or small that is, belongs to them. If when I publish a book on my own, I don't get 15%, I get 70%. So it's my work effort, but it's also my reward. So to then turn around when you get a cooperative together, it then evolves into a distributor, which evolves into a small press entity, which now takes my 40%. And so it's the same as going to a small press publisher. So there are options like that available to indies. I always encourage our first-time artists, our first-time publishers, etc., to look around and to become what is affectionately referred to throughout the industry as a hybrid creator. Take the 1 million followers that somebody like Bain Books can give you. Take that. But then take some of your work and look at it and say, you know what, I think this is mine. I want to keep this in-house, and really explore your options, because so many people can do that now in a way that you couldn't do this 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we all know you went and you paid for everything that got done. You had a trunk full of books that you couldn't get rid of. You drove them to every bookstore, and the bookstore manager said, no, it's not in my catalog. I don't want that. But today we can do things using social media, using the internet, using print-on-demand services where I don't have to have 5,000. I can order just 50 and drive those around. So use the technologies that's available to you. And everybody's looking for a way to market better and without having to do it ourselves. But the answer is we are our own best marketers. You love what you did. I write lines in my books where it makes me weep, and I go, I love this. There's no one who's going to sell this any better than me. If I can't sell it, then what is some other guy going to do? He doesn't like it the way I do. So to tap onto that, there are avenues to explore. Look at them if you're an indie creator, of course. Look at how you best serve your needs. But the end result is it's all about us sharing each other's work and letting once I share your work, now leaving it up to you to do the rest.
Now, I
want to add real quick, Rob. I'd like to jump in, and I want to point out something. I'm going to reveal a great big secret to everyone. I want everyone to grab a pen and paper because we're going to write something down. You mentioned marketing, and people treat marketing like it's this arcane magic that only a handful of people know. Now, I'm going to tell you about an all-encompassing site that has all the information that you need to know. Okay, you ready? Now, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. Okay, this is a secret. It's called Google.com. Write it down. Okay. Everything you need to know is on Google, and the next best thing is YouTube. All the marketing stuff I've learned pretty much, aside from my years in retail, was I got it off of those places. All the information you need to create a comic, to create a book, to distribute it, to get it into stores, or even just to show up and how to set up your displays. Everything you need to know is on the interwebs. And all you have to do, like any sort of big help you need, is ask. And, it's not like this is magic. Because God knows I can do it. Everyone can do it now.
Amazing that you say that, because it's funny. I think every one of us here right now could attest to the fact that when I get ready to do an interview and I like the setup properly, guys, how to do 3-point lighting. I Googled that. I got a YouTube video. I set my studio up. Where to share my videos. I Googled that and I shared my videos. Where to share my book, and it gave me the top 10 places to promote your own book. It's all right there, guys. It's at your fingertips. If you can watch this broadcast, then you can learn how to market yourself, your work, and your friends.
Yep.
And don't make the mistake like I did, because I did all the research, but you can see that I've done none of it.
Now, we are introducing Varian Drain. He's going to be joining us. He's having some technical difficulties. I think he's there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
And I just want to point out today's program is brought to you by Google, apparently. Varian.
Don't checks in the mail.
Don't mention all the indie advocates and how many panels we have on this, Brian. That's okay. I'll put my hurt feelings in a box under the bed. Varian, how are you doing today?
I am hanging in there, doing pretty good, and thinking about hitting the art table pretty soon and knocking out some pages of this book. But it's also nice being able to sit on the sofa.
Now, also tell us who you are, because you missed the intro round.
I did. Hello, everybody out there. My name is Varian Grant. I'm the co-owner of Last Call Comics. I've been there for 8 years now. First book I put out was way back when everybody on this panel were babies in 2008. So that was the first book I put out. It was a black and white interior book called Psycho Sirens, and I've also started IndieVolt.com, which is a total knockoff of what Rob does. This total knockoff, and been doing that for about 2 years now. That spun off into IndieVolt Radio on Google and IndieVolt TV on the Roku, where we stream indie movies and all types of stuff. Even some of Rob's programming, which I've also stolen from his YouTube and put up there. So yeah, I do everything that Rob does, just slower and backward.
And now you had a big moment today, didn't you? You got to make a big announcement.
Yeah. The other day, for our breakfast show, we call it the Breakfast Buzz. IndieVolt Radio passed 12,000 active listeners at one time on our radio program. I wish that I could translate those into YouTube subs. That'd be nice. But but the thing is, we've been noticing that climb since a lot of the things recently have been happening, so people are tuning in. But it's global, and that's always good. We got people writing in to us from Paraguay, Italy, which is bizarre. When you get an email from Italy about a comic book, you think, wow, really? It has backfired, though, on one creator, and I have to mention this. He got a Indiegogo. He has an Indiegogo campaign running, and someone backed his campaign, and he didn't consider that he might be having to send books to Germany. Because he did. That is possible, but he didn't consider it. So now he's going to have to pay that extra money to send that book to Germany. So IndieVolt, we help, but we hurt as well.
Now, is this the new on the screen? Is this your new logo at IndieVolt?
Yeah. Pixel, how's it going, Pixel? Yeah, he's Pixel and I, and again, we're gonna merge because he has IndieCron. I have IndieVolt. We're just gonna merge at one point and just, take over. We're gonna knock you out. We're gonna knock you out the park, Rob.
Now, well, according to everyone, I own every website, so it doesn't matter. I already.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to ask. Let's talk about this. I don't know if Garrett's actually ever gotten this, but I know probably everyone else has. Garrett, have you gotten hate mail, and how do you deal with it? And then I want everyone else to talk about it. Have you received hate mail, or possibly a creator being pissed off on how the interview went after?
Oh yeah. It's actually two questions. I've had creators sit in the chair and not like the way the interview turned out or the way they looked, or I've had young ladies that didn't like the way they looked on camera during their close-ups, etc. So I've had those, which are pretty standard. And one of the things that we try to tell everybody up front is there's a reason why we do what we do as a media outlet. And one of those things is if I want to ask you an uncomfortable question, I need to have that freedom. I'm a journalist at my core. I want to support what you're doing. I want to support your art. I want to support your creativity. But if something that you are creating or doing fits into the category of something that has a difficult question attached to it. Maybe you're drawing risque things, maybe whatever it is. I want to be able to ask that question. And I want your answer to be raw and unfiltered. I do not edit anything that we do for content. I edit for time. I take out a lot of myself when I'm editing. I take out a lot of, things that you and I will share as my way of getting you to open up. And I'll cut my portion of that out and just leave your answers. But I do not edit for content. And the reason for that is because I want it raw and unfiltered. And I think that my contemporaries would agree that when it's raw and unfiltered, you're real. And if you're an indie creator and you're learning marketing 101, then here's a lesson from an old sales guy when I was in my 20s, back when we rode dinosaurs to work, me and Brian. I will say that I was a salesman. And as a salesman, I will tell you, people buy things from other people. They do not buy things from, shelves. They do not buy things from store names. They buy things from people. If you go to your favorite bookstore, it's not because of the name on the front of it. It's because of the clerk behind the counter, the one that makes you feel welcome, the one that brings you a cup of coffee. And in your case, as an indie creator, you are that person. You're that point of contact. And I want that to be raw and unfiltered. I want that to be who you are so that your potential customers, your audience, my audience, can get to know you as a person. So yes, I have gotten that kind of thing. On the flip side, I have had fans very, very upset that I maybe did not push a question that they thought was controversial, or a project that they supported online that they didn't have good luck with. And so I've gotten those letters too, where I'm not hard enough on my guests. And part of that is I consider myself a journalist, but I'm what in the newsroom would be considered a feature journalist. I feature people in our show. And so it's not my job to ask you about, that project you did 10 years ago that failed and how you're going to say you're sorry to your fans. So I get, that's the kind of hate mail that I get, is people saying, you should have pushed, you should have asked him about this, or you should have asked him about that. And oftentimes I'll know about those things, but they're not things relevant to the time. And my degree is in journalism from Eastern Florida State College. I have a background as a newspaper reporter. So that is my number one question when I do an interview is a question going to be relevant? Is it going to be in the best interest of the interview and of the, not just the subject, but of the audience? And if the answer is yes, then it doesn't have to be controversial. And I do the one thing that I know, I see faces in this room and things that I know I've seen. We're all a group of people who do something very unique. And it's probably one of the reasons that we don't have the 1 million subscriber count. And that is when we put a headline up or a video title up, it's usually descriptive and it has a sense of journalistic integrity. Whereas some of our peers and contemporaries are running things that, as a journalist major, I can tell you, we used to call that yellow journalism. Today we call it sensationalism. Today they call it on the internet clickbait. But the reality is that it's not informative. It's designed solely to grab that attention span. And that's one of the things that we don't do. As a result, though, we do get mail saying, you should do this better and you should do this harder. And you should have asked why, if I do a Doctor Who show with an artist, someone will say, you should ask why everyone hates this. And I say, well, no, I shouldn't ask that because I don't care about that. It has nothing to do with my creator. That's something that they can do on one of those channels that promotes themselves with that kind of journalism. It's not my style. So I don't know if that was an answer or not. I'm not sure.
Oh, you did great. I'm going to switch over to Meredith, and you're a little lower, so every time I have to turn off the banners.
Oh,
yeah, can you do
I'll
computer
sit up a
screen
little
down
bit more
just
in my chair here.
Yeah, there
Look
you
at
go.
this ridiculous sunburn I gave myself.
You've been walking a lot, trying to get
I've
out.
been walking. I've been trying to get some exercise. Okay, so as for hate mail, I haven't been at Geek Insider long enough to get hate mail, so I'm either doing something real or I'm doing something really wrong, because I have a background in newspapers also. I used to actually run the obituary department in a daily newspaper. And let me tell you something, when you screw up an obituary, and when I screw up, I do big time, okay? I actually put, we had 2 obituaries, both last names were AnderSiN. And this is like 10 years ago, and I still remember their last names because I screwed up that bad. So we had a little old white woman and her picture and a big black man, and I swapped their photos. in the obituary. Now, if you know newspapers, you can't take that back. You can't fix that online. It's in print. And so trust me, I didn't want to go to work the next day. I said, oh my God, this is just terrible. And what I was proactive. Okay, so if I know that it's going to be bad, I'm proactive. I make the phone call and I say, I screwed up. How can I make it better for you? And then I shut up and listen. I think that's the key. But when I'm not proactive and people are chasing after me, then it's so much more energy, to chase it down. And you guys know as well as I do, it can be with a review of your own book. It could be just something that you like. If you like something, chances are you're not going to tell too many people unless you had an amazing experience. But if it's bad, you're going to tell all your friends. And I think that's the same thing with our content, with indie content, that goes with marketing and stuff like that. Now, some people will say, especially in the newspaper business, if it's bad news, it's good news, because then people are talking about it. Then you have to be really quick on your feet and go, okay, how can I spin that to my benefit and get the most marketing buck out of that? So, but as for me, like I said, if I get hate mail, I don't consider it hate mail. I consider it as a learning experience or something that I can pivot on and try and take advantage of.
Now, Brian, you get it live. You actually get your hate mail live when you're doing your videos.
I don't have to wait. It's a good thing people are taking my attention span into account. It's like, Brian, I hate you, and let me tell you all the reasons why. Actually, I have gotten quite a bit of, I want to say hate. I've only gotten really one hate, and it was somebody that didn't like the fact that I was encouraging their girlfriend to try to develop their writing skills, but everybody else is, I've had my more than my share of complaints, and most of them were my fault, I will say. But every now and then I'll get somebody that said, excuse me, that I like on Facebook an entry for a Kickstarter that somebody has done. Then I do one of my shows, and then about 10 minutes later, after I get off the air, I get an angrygram from somebody saying, well, you liked my post. Why didn't you mention it every 5 minutes on your show? Well, there's this adrenaline thing that we do when we do shows like this, where we're in that moment. And plus, if you're trying to run a halfway technologically viewable show, like I've just gotten into OBS, and boy, howdy do I get pushback on that. Whether I do it right or wrong, because if I do it right, then it's like, well, why aren't you doing this on YouTube? And if I do it wrong, like this morning when I forgot to turn on my sound for the first 2 minutes, yay for me. But yeah, I agree with Meredith. You have to take a certain part of it as a learning experience, and I would say a certain part of it also comes from people that don't quite understand what we are doing when we go on the air. And, like I mentioned, my rampaging ego earlier, I talk constantly about me, but not me. That the person you see before me is about 98% real Brian, but you don't see the guy that had a nervous breakdown last week sort of thing, because we have to put on a persona of, kind of, not just a fez and a bow tie and everything, but we have to put up a certain type of persona for the entertainment, or just so people will feel secure talking to us, sort of thing. But yeah, I've mostly gotten a little pushback from people who don't, who think I should have promoted them some other way. And in the end, I know what my capabilities are. Like you guys, I'm a journalism major too, with with newspaper experience, which is why I love deadlines as much as I do. But like for instance, I had one author who said, "Well, I want you to have me on your show and interview me for an hour." And I'm like, "Well, how about we do it like I've done in the past with other people where you come on and I let all my people ask you questions. And no, we're not going to do it that way. And it's like, no, I'm not going to be dictated to how I do what I do because I know my own strengths and everything. So yeah, I've gotten a limited amount of it, but for the most part, people just take their pot shots at me live. So
those are my favorite. Those are my favorite guys, Brian. Are the ones that say to me, "Will you send me your questions?"
Yeah.
And I always look at the girls and I say, send them a very nice email saying, Garrett doesn't know what his questions are until he talks to you.
Exactly.
Because this is a talk show setting. It's a feature article, not a hard news article. So I don't have I'm going to sit with you, and you and I are going to come up with a way that we're having a dynamic, and that's going to lead me to say, well, gee, Brian, tell me about your background. And you're going to do that. It's going to be like that. But can you send me your questions, or can I get them in advance? Yeah. No, you really can't.
There's a difference between a conversation and an interrogation.
Yes.
I'll take the conversation any day because, like you said, you get the real stuff that way.
Now, before we bring Varian on for this question, because I have to start this off by apologizing to Varian. I'm sorry you get so much hate mail because of me. I know it's my fault, and I know what Brian was saying. I kind of had to make up not make up, but I embraced two different personas. A lot of people consider me the advocate, and they expect me to be this cardboard cutout of a human being the advocate, and they forgot I create books about fetish monsters and more. So when I go on Varian's show, they usually get the devil, not the advocate. And I usually am very honest, and I don't mind being sarcastic. So, Varian, I'm sorry. How do you deal with my hate mail?
Well, that's why we have two shows now. We have the Tuesday night show at 9 p.m. and then we have the Thursday morning show at 9 a.m. to apologize for everything that happened Tuesday night. And it gives everybody 24 hours. And I thought about testing it before. I'm like, you know what? We had Hart Fisher on once, and I said, okay, Hart dropped F-bombs, all of them, every F word you can imagine, and I'm like, oh man, we're gonna get tore up tomorrow. Not a one. Well, I think we got a one piece of hate mail, which we found out about later actually came from a competitor. Which I use that. I do air quotes when I say competitor because I don't but we get Rob on 3, 4. It's like what so yeah, Rob, congratulations. You get more hate mail than Hart Fisher.
But I bring the viewership.
Yeah, you bring the viewership.
Boy, do people listen. Sorry, I'm gonna mute because they're setting out off Amber Alert.
Okay.
I used to sell Hart Fisher his comic books back in the 80s, so yeah, I can understand.
we it was a gritted teeth interview. Hart. It's funny. I mean, you guys know Hart. He is a awesome guy. I love him. Mm-hmm. And he was great. Backstage, we were talking. Like backstage here on StreamYard, we're talking, and then I said, okay, we're going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then something happened, and I'm not sure what it was, but a switch. He has a switch he can flip, and he becomes like He-Man, and it's a complete different person. And you're like, what is going on here? So it's pretty cool. But as far as hate mail, yeah, we get a few pieces here and there. And again, I would tell people, if you're getting hate mail too, have somebody who's doing tech work for you. Sometimes kind of run those emails, because we found out 3 pieces of hate mail that we got actually came from the same person, but they wanted to make it seem like it was a lot worse. And what tipped us off is that the emails are kind of the same. So if it starts to affect you, in this case, the person was threatening violence on us too. So we definitely did a little bit more due diligence and found out who it was and traced it back down. And that was good to have that. And then you confront the person, hey, we know this is you, knock it off. Usually it ends there. As far as hate mail, though, I don't know if you guys have had this. We had a situation. Well, I've had a situation with IndieVolt where, I have different people. I don't feel comfortable reviewing the comics because I make them too. So I had a store owner. He does some reviews for me. Well, a creator reached out to me through Messenger and said, "Hey, could you take that review down?" And I was like, "What?" And it wasn't a bad review. We have a rating meter on our site, wendyvolt.com, and it's 5.0 is the highest you can get. He got a 3.5, and which isn't bad. And he got mad at me, and he wanted it down. And I told him, I said, "Well, the problem is that that person who did the review, they were paid for it. That's their time. I'd have to ask their permission to take it down." I did speak to him. He let me know in several unnice words that he wasn't going to take it down. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. He was not going to take that review down at all. And the guy told me, he says, "Well, you didn't do it like you're supposed to. You're supposed to reach out to me and let me see the review first." And I'm like, what? And my world started spinning around. I was like, what? Is this something we do? And I reached out to other people, and they were like, no one ever gets to hear a review first. I mean, so there are people out there. There are other people doing indie reviews, guys, who are letting the reviewee know, "Hey, here's your review. Approve it so I can post it to my site first." And that right there is a big problem. And eventually, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, actually, I wanted to speak to that point that you just made, and to our audience especially. First of all, I know it'll be coming up. Rob will get to it in a minute, but we had a question on how do people get on our shows, so we can all go around and give the emails and such. So because contacts for us at the Hanging With Web Show, it's Sage, SAGE at hangingwithshow.com, HAGIN with show.com.
HANGIN with show.com.
That's her thing. Okay, but to speak to your point, I would want to remind all of our indie creators who are watching right now, everything on the internet is for sale, guys. A review is not a saleable object. Okay, a review is done by someone who intends to read, watch, get your material and give an honest answer. If you pay them for that answer, I hope it's never honest. They should give you 5 stars every time. You paid for that. However, if you're paying for that, it's not an honest, genuine review. It's a review of your dollars, not a review of your product. So please do your homework and your research. When somebody reaches out to you and says, "I'll do a review and I'll send it to you and you can approve it and I'll put it on my website," that usually comes with something along the lines of, "It's only $12. It's only $50. It's only one highly respected site that I will not name on the air was selling a single review, $500. And for those of you who are into web media, you've probably seen them. They purchase advertising through Google and it lands on your page. I had to literally block the ad because they were charging my indie authors $500 for a single review on a single website. And then they were doing what they considered an honest review. So for $500, you got 2.5 stars. Way to go. So as a warning to our indie creators out there, when you find a journalist that's willing to share their work with you before they publish it, there's probably a fee, and that's when you hang the phone up. That's when it's time to go.
Now, I do want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about something that Varian and a couple of you have brought up. Is there a switch? Do you guys, like for me, I don't ever think that I turn a switch on or off, but I always remember what The Rock said. When The Rock was out on stage, he turned who he was all the way up. So when I'm advocating, I want to be very, very honest about it. Like if I like a book, I want to show that I like a book. I let it be heard in my voice. If I'm the devil and I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, I go into that. I bend into that, and I play The Rock. And I remember how a wrestler, going to the wrestler thing, they all can play heels. Well, a lot of them can play heel or a face. And I kind of do that depending on the situation. I don't ask permission, and I like being that. But do you guys feel like you've been cast into a role and you have this online persona that sometimes people, when they meet you, are like, wow, you're so much different in person?
There's 4 different variants. There's me. There's the variant YouTube when I draw on YouTube on my personal channel, who's becoming a little bit more ornery as time goes on. Don't know what's happened with the character development there. There is there's Last Call Comics publisher variant, which is very excited about his product. And then there's Indie Vote variant, who is really weird, and I guess I may have been influenced by Brian a bit because I wear coonskin cap during those things. And now it's to the point where I have to wear this coonskin cap to cons, and people are recognizing me. So it's getting pretty weird. But I still don't cuss a lot on the air as much as I do off the air, Rob. So there is a bit of an act there. You would think that I never cuss, but yeah. When the show was over, Rob hears me backstage. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, cussing is probably my thing too. I try to run a clean show. In fact, we claim that we've installed a 7-second filter like the big networks do, so that we can't say like and or any of those words. However, once I'm off the air, the me who is me is a lot more sarcastic, probably a little bit more cynical than he needs to be, and swears like a Marine on leave. So I think I startled Chuck Pinot one day when we were off the air on one of Rob's interviews, and suddenly I launched into like an obscenity-filled invective, and and Chuck was just so entertained. He just didn't think I swore.
I can't picture it. Myself.
It's pretty dirty.
Hang on.
It's dirty. But I respect Brian for that, because I think being a professional is knowing when you're not supposed to curse. It's knowing the time and place to not actually curse. So I give Brian. I mean, I can curse, but I don't think I've said one today. And if it was natural. But it wasn't like, I can go on Varian's show when we're all playing around and he's got the TVMA and I can make people blush. But then there are moments when, you're talking, like right now we're doing a panel. We're trying to educate people. Mm-hmm. People don't want to hear that I know how to curse. That's not impressive. Yeah. Being able to articulate myself and actually say what I mean, I think is more impressive. Yeah. And Garrett, you're one of the best people at articulating yourselves that I know. You have a very good vocabulary and you know how to keep a standard pace. But is there a dirty Garrett? Have I not met the dirty Garrett? Like
ladies and gentlemen, this is not a confession. This is one of my proudest accomplishments in life. I am a U.S. Army infantryman. My dirty vocabulary extends quite literally from the foxhole and beyond. My boys will attest to that. My boys that grew up with me, they grew up with Sergeant Dad because I became a dad at 18. So I didn't know how to be a dad, but thanks to the U.S. Army's NCO school, I did know how to be a sergeant. So they grew up with Drill Sergeant Dad, and they'll tell you I know every dirty word and a few that I make up along the way. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, there is. When I'm on camera, I do my very best not to let that dog off the chain, if you will. But also, I think part of it is, as Brian articulated in his opening comments. Part of it is branding. The person that you are when you're on the air, the person that you are when you're on Facebook or on social media, this is a brand that we are cultivating. I am going to get so much flack after this broadcast already because my sports coat got left over there. So I attended a Brevard Film and Talent meeting one night that I was going to for personal enjoyment, not as a show representative, where 3 people in the audience, after they introduced me, yelled at me because I was wearing a T-shirt and not my sports coat and my button-down shirt. So there is a brand that we're putting out, and that brand is me, the journalist, me, the artist, not me, the infantryman. So I separate those bits. But I will tell you, there are times where I think we've all experienced perhaps what they refer to as a hot mic mistake, which is, in fact, just as a matter of fact, one night ago, we were doing, in addition to the Hanging with Web show and our web TV, HWWS web TV on YouTube, we also run an independent internet radio station for independent musicians. And each week we do a top 10 live broadcast. And last night I get it upon my head to use Facebook Live, as we all have been doing in these times, and to go live on Facebook with our top 10 while we were broadcasting to the radio. Unfortunately, the technology in the room wasn't working the way I thought it was. So my mics were wired into the radio mixer, but my mic on my camera was actually what was going to Facebook Live. So one of the girls had forgotten to give me my list of top 10 songs. So I was sort of spitballing and looking around the room from far away. And we put on the number, I think it was a number 9 song. It was playing. And I took it upon myself to berate them miserably for not informing me properly. And I'm sure I dropped more than my share of obscenities. And then someone, a good friend of ours that happened to be in the chat room, notified us in an instant message that the mic on my camera was hot, and that our backstage banter was less than private. And so I do find myself in those. I mean, I have those moments like anyone else. Most of who I am, I don't know if I am a sociopath or if I'm normal. I have no idea. I have no way to gauge it. But most of who I am in daily life is a trial and error, a project that I've been rehearsing since I was 15 years old. I would look in the mirror, how I move my hands, how I smile, how everything is rehearsed. But it was done when I was 15, 16, 18, growing into who I wanted to be. And so I have my moments when I fall out of character, but for the most part, the person you get on screen it really is me. It's just a little bit tidied up.
Now, I do want to bring up to Meredith, and it's just being honest, there's an unfairness towards women. Do you feel that pressure sometimes, that if you say a curse, someone looks at you like, how could you curse? Like, I don't get that. I curse, no one even blinks an eye, and they're like, that's Rob. And it's always been that way. But like, I have the deep voice, some growlies. Matter of fact, when I say big words, people go, how do you know that big word?
Ooh.
Cursing. I get it in reverse. Like, someone your size shouldn't understand disingenuous. And I'm like, I'm going to show you what my size is good for in a second. But for you, do you feel that you sometimes are almost made to feel a certain way and you have to act a certain way just because of your gender? Has that ever been an issue for you?
That's never been an issue for me. And if you actually talk to my husband, he'd probably tell you that I've got balls that clank. So, my language has always been what it is. What you see is what you get, with the exception of the hat and the lipstick. This is it. So I don't really have, I don't have the energy to try and put on a show that is a different persona. I've got enough voices in my head when I'm trying to write that I don't need them coming out of my mouth. I try to reserve that for paper and keep myself out of jail. So, but for me, I don't really, this is it. This is it, guys. You're going to get me. And if something slips out, I do try to curb my language depending on who the guest is and who I think my audience is. And I think everybody should be a little bit conscientious of that. But for the most part, if I'm around adults and stuff, I'll tell you what, today I was recording something. I had a beer at noon. And I was just like, I don't feel like going to freaking work today. It's like, oh shoot, I have to. Here I am. I'm curbing my language because it's a more professional panel here. But I'm like, oh crap. I'm looking at the time, going, I gotta get my stuff together, for Rob's show and be presentable. I threw on lipstick and that was it.
Now let me ask you guys a question, because this does open the door for it. What do you guys do with negativity that you're brought to? This is a real story. And I know Varian's going to understand this. We're brought a lot of different things. And being an indie advocate who stood up to Marcel Dupree, I'm not going to hide what I did because I'm not that person, and calling him out for how he hurt the community. A lot of people turned on me the first time I did it. So the second time I did it, I came with full barrels loaded. I had so much information that no one could deny what I was saying, because the first time I just went with the truth, and apparently the truth wasn't enough. But that really is a thing. What do you guys do with negativity? And we'll start with Varian for this one, because Varian's he's been caught in the middle of things, and he's got to be careful, because in this day and age, I don't care about being sued. You can take a $50 bill and split it. You can have my 50 cents. So I'm not worried. I don't got Varian money. Varian's got the money. So he's worried about getting sued. I'm not. Varian, how do you deal with honest, real stories that could be problematic for you and your brand and even your radio station?
Well, when, news breaks, like we had a situation that happened a couple weeks back that kind of shook the industry a bit. and we had we've had like we have people come on and they have a real story and they want to talk about it. Which is there's me right there. We have to worry about, like, are we getting all the facts? Are we talking to the right people? Are we I don't want to present any falsehoods. At the same time, there is the possibility sometimes that if a story breaks and it's about somebody who's entrenched in the industry, like Rob, it can make it hard for you to go there to that con and do anything like at all. Because I mean, we know people now, Rob, and you've seen it, you heard the rumors, and now you've experienced it. There are people who can make your life in this industry very hard because you told the truth. Sometimes there's whistleblowers right now who have been unpersoned. They can't get a job. They can't, government whistleblowers. So in this industry, there are people who they can make it so that you can't go to a con, or all of a sudden your booth request was denied, and sorry, we use a lottery system, you can't get in anymore. Some of those people are wondering what the hell they can do right now, but because you don't have the cons to hang over their heads right now. But at the same time, like, well, Rob, you've got some threats, and what can they really? And you said to yourself, well, they can't do anything to me. They can try because the tentacles don't reach that far yet.
Oh, even if they did, I don't care. I'm stupid. I'll admit it on this panel. I am dumb. I'm from New York. We're not raised right. We're raised that you get shot, you stand back up, and you keep running at the guy with the gun, because there's a chance you can win. I blame Spider-Man. It's all his fault. He's from Queens. He set us up for failure.
Yeah, you just have to be very careful when you get those stories. Just do the research, though. Don't go off that gut knee jerk. Oh, I want to run this story. This is a story. Do the research. You know what? If someone beats you to the story, that's fine. I'd rather you beat me to the story, because hey, if you beat me to the story and it gets proven that it's false, I get to watch what happens to you rather than me. I hate to say it that way, but it is true. So it's very when you get those type of negative stories. But I will say this: I had a story, Rob, that about. It came across about 2 years ago, and to this day, and I didn't run it. I was told I ran it past a couple people, like, hey, what do you think? And they were like, don't run this. You're gonna get the crap suit out of you. And I had a feeling it was right, but the person it was coming from had questionable character. And then a couple months ago, it all came back, and had maybe I you remember, Rob, I think I messaged you a few times. We even came into a no broadcasters, a StreamYard, come to Jesus meeting, where I was like really sad because I felt like I could have stopped that from happening 3 years ago. I felt like I had a responsibility when I said, oh, I'm gonna do this site to push indie comics. So it's a slippery slope. I don't know how Brian or anybody else does it, but it's I just try to always make sure that we got some good stories up there. There's so much negativity. Try to promote good books, good people, what they're doing. Even if they're doing the same thing we're doing, we try to promote that, because there's so much negativity, and it fills in my inbox quite frequently, and it depresses me.
So what about you, Garrett? How do you deal with when you got to be in the middle of an interview and someone says something and you're like, oh, that's going to be controversial. They just said something. I can't walk this back. Do I edit it out? Do I let it flow? What do I do now? Because, it could be something as easy as, I don't like this person because he does this. And you're like, oh, no, that's an accusation. Or maybe it's a direct, like, hey, I heard this site only does this. How do you guys handle it over there?
As you pointed out, one of the things that I've spent a great deal of time and still do every day, every night, every interview is working on how to articulate responses to not just my own questions, but to the answers that are coming in. And it takes time and polish, but I approach every question and every answer understanding, or trying to understand. I'm a human being. I don't understand always, but trying to understand that every participant has a point of view. That includes the participant that's not in the room with me. So if I was doing an interview with you, Rob, and you said, well, gee, I talked to this guy, I just can't stand that guy, and because he did this, this, and this. I understand that you have your perspective, and I also understand that that particular person has their perspective. And even though they're not in the room, their name, their persona has now been invoked. It's not my job to play devil's advocate to speak for them, but it is my job to point out to my audience that there is another perspective, and that the Hanging with Web show as an entity, that myself as a journalist encourages everyone to find out for themselves. And I mean that because that's really what it's about. I come from a time in journalism when I went to school and I was working in the newspaper. I come from a time when we used to have rules. They were called equal time rules. They were primarily for politics. They were so that if this side said something, you had to give this side a chance to say something. And having kind of grown up in that era, I take that application into our feature world, and I say, well, Rob, this is Rob's 15 minutes. If I ask a question that points him in a direction to say that, then it's my job to point my audience in a direction where this is Rob's opinion and we respect it and we want you to know it. So I'm not going to edit it, but I am going to tell you to do your own homework, to do your own research, to go online, to look things up. I spent a lot of time during these times, especially the last few weeks. Rumors abound about the reason that we're all doing what we're doing online instead of out in public right now. And rumors are out there. So many bad things are going to happen, and so many horrible things are going to happen. And I've spent my entire time online reminding the viewers, reminding the artist community, reminding the hosts of my own shows. I had entire conversations with the panel that does the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS, where I say there are 20,000 people on the Hanging with Web Show Facebook page. There are 30,000 people on our Legend of the Traveling TARDIS page. There's another 12,000 people on our YouTube channel. We have an obligation to be right. We have an obligation to be calm. We have an obligation to do our homework. And because our viewers, our listeners, are the people who care about what we think, they're going to expect that. We're going to set a tone for them. So if someone comes on the show and says, well, I heard, I'll give you an example recently, and because you were talking about earlier what brought us all together this week. There was a text message that went around 2 weeks ago. It's been proven to be false, but it was sent to over 100,000 people that declared that the United States was going to declare martial law. There would be troops in the streets. It went around the internet. It was sent to people's phones, and it was a rumor that was going around. And someone on one of my shows wanted to talk about it, and I said, I want you to verify that source. I want you to source that text message. I don't care if you use it. If you can source it, that's fine. But then I want you to look it up. I want you to find out if it's real. Because if you tell our audience, if you tell 50,000 people that this is going to happen, and just 10% of them believe you, that's 5,000 people in a panic. We have an obligation to do better than that. So I do try to proceed with caution. Although, again, as I stated earlier, our show is primarily features. We feature people and their art. So I don't run into that as often as I could. We do live work on Facebook and other places. So in the live broadcast, there's a lot more chance of something going awry. But I do take it very seriously that whether we set out to be personalities or not, each one of us that's in this room right now has an audience, and that makes us personalities, and that gives us an inherent obligation to the people who view us. And if we don't take that obligation seriously, how can we be expected to be taken seriously in what we do?
Those are good points. Meredith and Brian, I do want to hear how you guys handle it, but I want to ask Varian real quick, because he has co-hosts too. Varian, has a co-host ever stepped into something that caused you a problem? Because Garrett brings up a good point. When you have someone on your show, they're dynamite sometimes, and especially if they're your co-host, you're going to pay for what they say.
Yeah, we had a co-host once. He made a comment. He said something to speak. Okay, he said that he was upset with a particular race of people because a particular race of people had murdered his grandmother, which, I understand his rage. I understand him being upset about it. Tried to talk to him about it. He tried to explain himself. We kind of just swept that. He said it live on air, so it was like, okay. We kind of, swept it under the rug. I think he may have got emboldened because like a week or two later, and we have a comic book themed, show. It's. He said he's lucky. We're lucky. The industry is lucky that he can't get firearms because if he does, he's gonna go to a con and clear it out. And that was his last week on our show. We never mentioned him. We basically, for a wrestling reference, we basically Chris Benoit him. Like he disappeared. It was like he didn't exist anymore. And
was that an awkward conversation telling him you're not coming back ever? Or was it very short and to the point?
There never was a conversation after that. It was just like, okay, we continued the show. And when the show was over, it was like, yeah, okay, so we're not sending, you're not getting the link. It was rough. I mean, when you make that type of comment in this environment, a con, I mean, everyone comes to Comic-Con to have a good time. And here you come because you're jealous. You don't put out content. You're jealous. You make up stories about how much content you put out. And you're jealous and you're upset for everybody. And you make these comments. I'm going to shoot the con up. And the video's still there. The video's still there. I mean, it's just,
I said I didn't know you had Liam Neeson as a co-host for your show at one point. That's amazing. And
yeah, he was hard to deal with, man. We had to get rid of Liam.
All right, but I am gonna pass it back to Brian. Brian, I know that we have talked in the past, and I've given you advice on certain stories I felt you should stay away from because I didn't think it was your brand. How do you deal with that? Because in the middle of the show, I've seen people drop things, and it's like, wow, like Garrett was saying, suddenly he's bringing up a text message, and you're like, I don't want to talk about that on my show because I can't verify it. How do you deal with things? And you've been talking a lot about that fact, not fear campaign that's going on and listening to the right people. So how do you deal with it, Brian?
I tend to deal with it immediately. Excuse me. I, like you guys, I, say, okay, I need a source for that. Give me a reputable source for that, whether it is right now or off the air. But we're going to follow up on this. And yeah, we occasionally get somebody that makes some sort of wild remark, and we deal with it right then and there. And I have smacked people down, even to the point where I'll say, if you keep pushing this narrative, this is the last time you're on this show. I will block you from my page, which is about the only recourse I have at this point since I'm using Facebook Live. But one thing, especially right now with the medical crisis we are going through right now, I feel, again, this is the journalism's major speaking, I feel that since we are getting people who are notorious for not doing the research, and I do, that a number of people are relying on me to basically filter things. But then again, I'm also telling the sources I'm using so that people can then, from that point on, check for themselves and hopefully come to a conclusion that works for them. Now, as far as industry rumors, I get that also. But again, that's why I'm because I've read books and stuff like that. And I do try to study what goes on behind the scenes with creative endeavors. This is why your favorite artist can't draw your favorite comic book and put out like a comic every other day. This is why the studio isn't going to be putting out your favorite intellectual property, and they can't get your favorite stars to be in it, and they can't take the comic per se and just put it on the screen as is. There's just a whole lot of moving parts to it. But I feel an obligation that as a host, I need to do more research. I need to be on top of things. And if something doesn't sound right, I need to stop it right then and there and say, okay, time out. We're going to check this out. And then next show, because there's always going to be a next show, we're going to take it up again. And then if we have to make a correction, we will make a correction. And if it's something we need to amplify on, I'll double down on it. So, but I think in the end, we need to be as truthful as possible.
Now we are at the 90-minute mark. Does anyone have to go? Because I will continue the conversation because we do have some questions to ask. Garrett's got to go. So Garrett,
if I get like 2 minutes, guys, I do have to hop off. I am thoroughly enjoying this conversation, though. I wish I could stay longer. Unfortunately, as we alluded to earlier, we are planning CyberCon for April 17th through 19th, and my message box and my email box is exploding the last 3 days. And it's all stuff that, unfortunately, it's just me and the girls, the Hanging with Web Show team here in the office. So we have to do our thing. So real quick, we are the Hanging with Web Show. I'm GW Pomacher. Simply search for either one of those things in Google. You will find us. And certainly on Facebook, come on over to HWWS Web TV and the Hanging with Web Show page and join in a lot of the fun that we have. You can also please check out the CyberCon page. We are endeavoring to do something that I don't think has been done on the scale that we're doing it, using the technology that's available to us to really, really bring the community together. So check out the CyberCon and CyberCon 2020 pages. I'm GW Pomacher, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rob Anderson, for all you do for the indie community advocating, and thank to all of our guests here who I know are working equally as hard to promote our arts and entertainment community. So thank you to everybody, and thanks for letting me be a part of this panel. It is always a privilege to sit beside intelligible and wonderful creative artists. I tell people all the time, I have one talent, that is that I can read whatever card she puts in front of me and talk to a camera. Beyond that, I stand on and next to the shoulders of great people, geniuses. And I'm privileged to be able to do it. So thank you for letting me be a part of this community, and good night.
thank you for being with us today. And real quick, Pixel Trader said he'd like to promote CyberCon via IndieCron. You guys should hook up.
Absolutely. We will definitely be doing that. So Sage is taking notes back here behind the camera because she's so much smarter than me. So that's happening. Guys, thank you so much. Brian, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, man.
All. It was awesome to see you. I know we're going to be talking. We're going to be talking to you more about collaboration. Brian, I hope that Sage can reach out to you and get you involved in CyberCon as well.
I got the email, or rather the DM, and I will be replying to you. I promise.
Absolutely awesome, guys.
Thank you.
A great night. Okay, we're going to get back to work here. Okay.
So get that con, man. All right, guys. Meredith, how about you? Have you gotten to the point yet as being an online personality where you've had a story and you felt like I have to not handle this? I do have to handle this. Like,
well, I have to just say, not necessarily with Geek Insider, but with previous experiences and things like that. I want to say, being the new kid in the block here, that my perception is that the five of us are old school. We understand the difference between fact and opinion. Unfortunately, these days, it just seems that everybody's opinion seems to be more important than the facts. And that's when everything, the waters get really muddy and people get butt hurt. And that it's really unfortunate. And I want to say that it's on the shoulders of the indie journalists and people like us who have a sane voice, who take the time to do the research and build up that trust foundation for people to tune in. Because if you look at the mainstream news, I shut it off. I can't listen to it anymore because it's so much hype, and there's only so much that they can hammer into a news cycle in a short amount of time before they're looking for the next thing to be upset about or offended about. And again, that speaks to your opinion is more important than mine. When I'm around people like that, I shut up. And you know what? If you want to call me a dumbass, you go right ahead, because your opinion is more important than mine.
I just want to say that I'm offended that you think facts matter more than my feelings. I'm just telling you, I'm triggered. I need a safe space.
I know. I'll send you a binky, okay?
I need my participation trophy for being on this panel today. God damn it.
I got your safe space right here, Rob.
Whoa. Fired. We got Brian K. Morris on tape being dirty. I love it.
You thought it never happened.
No, but I completely agree with you, Meredith. I grew up, and I'm sure everyone on this panel agrees. I grew up with George Carlin. I don't believe in censorship. There's a time and a place, and even George Carlin knew how not to curse on network television. But he understood that we can't be afraid of having opinions, but we can't run away from facts either. Yes. And I know that Varian deals a lot with that, with people's feelings coming on fire with his show. Varian will get the feels. Some people will come into his show with some big feels and cause some trouble.
Yeah, I mean, we have people that come into the show, and they're usually, you know, like they'll send in messages, or they'll just come in, and they'll be, you know, some people are pretty upset. I got a guy who wants to come on, and I've invited him on several times now to come on and debate bringing the original untouched comics code back, the rules. He thinks that the indie community especially could benefit from those rules, and so and he's definitely in his feelings about it. And I've, you know, sometimes we get a little spicy back and forth with him, but I think when people get upset, it's good. I like to see, if you're upset, that means you care. You know, right or wrong, you care. And you know, if they're upset with me or something we said, we could talk about it. And you know, we have this tagline on Indie Vault. We call ourselves Comics Most Educated Panel, and it is a joke, but it's also one of the things we say when we say it live is Comics Most Educated Panel, or willing to be educated. You know, so if you have if you got some information we don't have, please share it with us. And I mean, there's been times people have come on the show and they've changed my mind about something. And we're always willing to. Rob's come on, and Rob's had to come on several times and defend himself because Rob, I don't know if you want me to. Should I mention what someone messaged me and said?
Well, it depends which one. There were. I mean, let's keep it PG.
Okay. Well, they messaged me and they said that Rob only made his comic so that he could meet young ladies.
I could have coitus.
Yeah.
That was why I create comics. That's never been said before and never will be said again.
And I sent it to Rob, and he came. He says, "Oh, I'm coming on. Send me a link." And I sent him a link, and he came on. There's one question I think actually kind of lit a fire under him when someone suggested that, you know, Rob likes his book because he wants to cause others pain, and that upset Rob. That Rob came in and he was a different Rob that day.
It wasn't the pain thing what they were trying to allude to, just for the record, because there's some truth in that, like I said on your show. I mean, yes, but it's the sexy pain. That's the thing I like to give, the sexy pain. But they were referring to...
it hurts so good, right?
Yeah, they were referring to me trying to not get consent, and I won't stand for that. There's a lot you can say about me, but when you cross certain lines, I'm going to come try to hunt you down. And they never showed up, did they?
No.
Waiting for them to come out. The whole show, I'm like, where are you? I'm right here. Come get
she would not come in. And I know that, you know, they had received the message and like, hey, come on. And, you know, he's willing to talk about it. And he wasn't being aggressive. He wasn't, you know, breathing hard or anything. He was just, you know, like, hey, I'm here to talk about it, you know, and he addressed her letter she sent us, but that's all that came of that. Yeah.
I never inferred anything. I never made any jokes. It was hard. Something died inside of me not making jokes.
See, but I interviewed Rob before, and I actually read the content. And I don't understand what people were offended about. I just from that conversation and not having seen her side of it, I'm like, girl, you're wrong.
Well, my best reviews come from the people who don't read my books.
Yeah, spicy, right?
Yeah, and he's gotten to it a few times about that. People, that like the worst thing you could do is come on our show and be like, well, like Rob is on. Well, Rob, you make a porn comic.
Or I make a niche product, or even Brian's gotten in it to me. When did you made a comment something about adult only book, and I was like, Brian,
Yeah, we had a conversation, and we kind of agreed to disagree because we're friends and we have more than a room temperature IQ. So I started calling it a grown-up comic book.
And then we went with Adult Tales. He actually came. He inspired me to find a new way to describe it because he's like, "How else would you describe it?" And I'm like, "Fine, I'll figure out a way."
Yeah, because I wanted to push Rob into, because I do have like a wide variety of people that watch my shows, and I didn't want them to get the idea that Rob was a gentleman pornographer or anything. He's not a gentleman. Anyway, no, seriously, he, yes, he is. He's one of the biggest gentlemen I know. Seriously, I love the guy. But anyway, but I didn't want to have the way Rob was approaching his selling, his portrayal of his product as something, that we're going to have to like get in a brown paper wrapper, like in the old days and such, because I felt it was a good story and I felt it was well told and it had things in there that I felt a number of people would appreciate reading from this point of view. And that Rob was unconsciously making it sound like, only people who are wearing the bottom half of a pair of trousers and a raincoat should be wearing, or should be reading rather. And I'm grateful that Rob did change his so to speak, thrusts on, on promoting that book. And I hope it helped. And I got a lot more people to talk to me offline and say, okay, I get it now.
It sucks that I'm always the person people are talking about. Like, how can you like Rob? He's such an asshole, and he makes books about fetish. I'm sorry, we're in overtime. I haven't cursed in forever. I had to.
Oh, does that mean I have to curse now?
If we can get it on tape, I would love it.
Well,
this is overtime. Like, that's why I take down the screen. This is just creators hanging out and misbehaving, basically, at this point. This because at the end of the panel, that's what we do. We all kind of break up. This is the part of the panel where you come up to the table and we start talking to you like real people.
Okay, well, shit. I went through so much bullshit because of that fucking Rob. Okay, and every bloody thing every pain in my fucking ass is because of Rob. Rob, I love you, brother.
Barry's got a beer right now. You can't see it. He's drinking. He's like, "Oh, Brian, do I know?"
Yeah, it's
like when Meredith said she didn't get hate mail. I'm like, really? I got one hate mail from me? Wow.
You're not trying, Meredith. You're not trying.
I'm not trying hard enough.
I want to promote that video a little bit.
Here's the thing. It's like, I know we kind of got a little bit off topic, but I have written an erotica. All right. It is straight up sex. It's nasty, nasty sex. And then I'm doing the
We're
interview
gonna be best friends.
But see, like in real life, I'm totally vanilla, and it's kind of funny that with Rob's, I call it a workbook. It is a workbook.
Yeah.
And honestly, except for the topic itself, it is very vanilla, and people are so offended about it. But they'll read my stuff and be okay with it. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
My wife is going through that right now. She hosts a show on Indie Vote, and Lola goes through that. She gets questions, and she's a Italian woman. She's got biggins, and she puts them on display on the show. And she wears cleavage showing shirts, and that's a part of her gimmick. But she gets messages and emails, and messages, especially Facebook messages. Dear God, some of them are less than you don't get a kid the phone for a reason. And sometimes when she's doing the show, I think people don't take her seriously because that is out there. And she's also writing a book similar to yours, Meredith. I've told her, I said, look, you're gonna get some hate mail. You're gonna get some hate mail because that's just the nature of our industry. And being a woman, I can understand when you put out that type of content. I would think that you might get some women reaching out to you saying, hey, how could you do this? How could you write this story? This isn't even from our point of view. Yeah.
Yeah. And God's honest truth, when my mother-in-law found my book, because I wrote it under a different name, and she found my book. Oh my God, I wanted to disappear under the floor. I wanted the floor to swallow me up, and there was a part of me that I'm not apologetic for writing it, but I wanted to tell her, I don't do that to your son. You know. And she was very, very much like, when's the next one coming out? You know, and I was floored. All right, so that was one hurdle. The next one would be if my kids ever discovered it, then I think I would probably die. But or maybe they would. I don't know. I kind of live to embarrass my kids.
All right, we're gonna do questions in a minute, but I want to tell you guys a funny story. So I got divorced 2 years ago. Just about.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're supposed to wait.
Well, actually, that's what I did when she recently talked about us getting back together. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's 150 pounds I lost.
I'm kidding. More like 170. I play. It's only a joke. No. So all my male friends started, and this was only my male friends with teenage daughters, started having conversations with me. What's your dating age, Rob? Like, what kind of age you're dating? Like, only my friends, again, with teenager, younger daughters. So one of my friends, his daughter's turning 18, and I didn't even bring it up. And he just turns around and he's there like, because someone had brought up his daughter dating me, and it was the most awkward thing because I was like, why am I getting dragged in? And they looked very seriously, and they're like, nope, Rob's a good guy, but I know the shit he'll do. I can't live with that. I can't live with what he would do to my daughter. And I'm like, he's not wrong. I get it. I get it. All right, so we're gonna hit up some questions, and we are getting to Luke Stones finally. How do people go about getting an interview with Indie Cron or on one of the other presenters today? BKM, are you finally gonna break down and do some interviews?
Yeah, gladly, and I'd love to have you on, Luke. You know, and I always tell a story about a friend of mine. He used to work for a major, this is good advice for everyone. I need to take it more often myself. But he used to work for one of the big movie studios, and he was always getting people to do favors for him. And a friend of his was in another industry said, well, how do you get people to do these things for you? And he goes, okay, take me out to lunch and bring your guy who needs to learn this stuff, and bring a paper, pen, recorder, whatever you need to get this stuff. So I sat down at a nice restaurant, had the usual small talk, and so my friend said, okay, you ready now? I'm going to tell you how to get favors from people. Pick up the phone and ask! Now, is there anything I need to clarify? You know, and it's like, just ask, you know, seriously, that's what we all need to learn to do. So, Luke, if you're watching, yeah, I'd have you on. In fact, I'd love to, what we do is a reverse interview. We did it one time with Rick Bradley when he was trying to immerse himself in this rock and roll lifestyle that we all lead as creators, spending weekends at the best Motel 6s in town. Anyway, you know, we had him ask us questions. And, you know, if you want to come on and, you know, ask us questions, and we'll have a conversation with the people that tune in. That's what I love doing. And you know, it's one of those things where I kind of like to pull back at that point and let the other people, you know, just talk to each other. Because I think that's what makes, you know, people are probably sick of me. So it's good to hear other people. So, yeah, seriously, I'd love to have you on, Luke. I'd love to have anyone on that's got a good point of view and wouldn't mind taking questions from my my audience.
Yeah, I've actually got Luke Stone scheduled for our Geek Out Virtual Con on the 11th, so he'll be there, and you know, he's going to promote some of his work and give us some of his time, you know, because I think time is still valuable, even though we're self-quarantining. But to what you were saying before with I don't know, I lost track. I lost it.
It happens.
What were
we talking about again?
The stupidest moments that you have on live camera are the worst. Where you can't name and you're just like, I had it. I swear I'm not.
I know. I was like all excited about seeing Luke here, and I was just like, we bumped him, yeah.
You're the first person ever to be excited about seeing Luke. I kid Luke. I kid Luke. I kid him. No, but Pixel Trader, how do you do it? Put it in your comments and we'll put it up. Varian, how do they get on your show?
Just reach out to me, Variant Ground on Facebook. You can also email us at indievotelive@indievote.com. Contact any one of our hosts. Randy Zimmerman on Facebook. You can't miss Randy. Joshua C. Lyman. Don't look up Josh Lyman. That's a West Wing character. You're going to look up Joshua C. Lyman. And tell them, hey, I want to go on IndieVote. They'll make sure, we'll all make sure you get on there, or go to indievote.com, send us a message, or the Facebook on IndieVote Facebook, find us there, send us a message, and then sometimes we find you too. We find you because we're always crawling through crowdfunding campaigns and websites and seeing who's got interesting books. I will say this: people who may be listening to this 2-3 years from now, 50 years from now, if you ask to go on a show, try your hardest to make sure you're going to be there, because it really, if you have to flake out, they understand. If something happens, you got kids, you got once is okay, twice is kind of iffy, a third time they're probably not going to ask you back. And you see, I mean, like, they bust. Well, it wasn't a bust, but there was revealed about 6-7 years ago now that there was a secret Facebook group full of professional comic book journals. Don't think that type of stuff still doesn't happen. So we all kind of talk, and we all kind of talk. And hey, did you know that Bobby Smith wouldn't come on my show, or he ghosted me 3 times, and if Meredith says he ghosted her 2 times, well then Brian's not gonna want him on his show. He knows it's gonna happen.
Yeah, don't waste our fucking time.
I do remember what I was going to say now, and it goes to what Brian was saying earlier. You have to pick up the phone or send out an email and ask. And I don't know why people don't do that more often, because the worst answer that you could possibly get is no.
There you have it.
Is that going to kill you? I mean, it might hurt your ego a little bit, but it's not going to kill you at the end of the day. You move on. That's what I was going to say.
All the dating. Prior to being rejected, we're all comic book nerds. We've been rejected too many times.
Yeah. It's almost like when you actually get an acceptance, it's almost like you have to call back and go, "Are you for real? Are you
sure you want me?"
All right.
Me?
Ryan, you might know this because I've heard you mention it. What are good marketing channels? And do you guys know any good marketing? I don't know marketing channels because I think I'm really good at marketing.
Okay. Yeah, and you are. First of all, thank you for the question, and it's a good one. I take most of my cues from independent book publishing, but a lot of it applies to comic books as well. We're not as dissimilar as you think, having done both. I recommend study book. There's one called Self-Publishing with Dale. It's a guy named Dale L. Roberts. Now, he does a lot of nonfiction, but a lot of the things he talks about are very much applicable to marketing your work in the cyber world here, which is basically the best, most free form of promotion that we have. And especially if you're operating on a shoestring, like many of us are, you've got to have a strong social platform. Another one that I like is Jenna Moreci. That's JennaMoreci. And she is one of those people where if you watch her videos, you see her growth as a writer and as a marketer. And she's not only not just pontificating on here's what you should be doing and you better do it or you'll fail. She is warts and all kind of like, okay, here's what I have learned from doing and here's what's working for me sort of approach. Plus, the fact is she swears like I do off camera. So you'll love her. But basically, again, there's also promotional things like on all of YouTube, and there's another platform that I like called Skillshare.com. Again, a lot of it is on independent book publishing, but I still think a lot of it applies. But the best thing you can do is just basically put your message out there. You can do what I call shotgunning, which is just join as many pages that relate to what you do, and then put your message on if you're able. Some sites allow it, some don't. But the best thing you can do, even bad marketing, in my opinion, is better than no marketing at all. So, you've got a product, you're proud of it. Talk it up. Share your enthusiasm for it, because people can tell when you're sincere. So that's my suggestion. But as far as YouTube, those are the main ones that I can think of. There's another one called Book Launchers also, which again is nonfiction. But Julie Broad, who I've gotten to know the last few months from comments and all that we share, she puts on these wonderfully goofy videos that you listen and you think, well, that's interesting stuff, and then you find out that she put out a book on real estate a few years ago that not only went to number one in her category, it went to number one in all of Amazon. So when you got somebody like that, it's doing the work and it's working for them. You don't try to reinvent the wheel. You just get your pen and paper out and you just take notes as fast as your hand can stand it. So those are my recommendations.
Now, I do want to, before we move on to anyone else's marketing thing, I want to give a tip to everyone who lasted this long into the video watching. Take notes while you're doing interviews. Take notes. And for me, if you notice, I actually doodle while I'm talking. That's because I have horrible ADHD, and that helps me focus. It helps me from trying to go to Facebook, do anything else. So I'm writing notes the whole time. Yeah, exactly. Doodle. Yes, that's what we do. We keep in. And I see Varian, he stays busy by looking through other things too, but he stays on point. It's just a way for us to continue the conversation without losing track, and we take notes and all that. Right, Varian? I think Varian's on mute.
No, yeah, that is. I mean, I'm constantly looking around. I'm checking Twitter. What people don't see a lot of times is when we're doing the show. I have two monitors in front of me. One is a smaller, I think it's like $50 monitor I bought. Just plug and play, and I have it set up, turned into portrait mode, and I keep our Twitter there. I'm constantly scrolling through, checking, hitting reload for mentions, because that stuff comes from everywhere. So I'm always looking around and trying to find different things, and especially when you're doing a live show like ours, sometimes Indie Vote Live, our Tuesday night show, is very structured. Then there are nights where I can't get the horses back into the stable, and so it's like they'll run through a question very quickly, and I'm like, oh, I thought we were gonna be on that question for 5 minutes. Apparently, it was a 30-second question, and I got to find something else now. So that's happened, and so I'm always moving on. And then I'm drawing. I will tell you this though, and this is personal. If you are doing a show and someone invites you on the show, do not, you can draw, because that's our business. Our business is art, or creating. So if you're typing though, try to keep the microphone away from the keyboard. That click, click, clack, clack, clack can get kind of annoying. But I've seen people actually sit back and text, and I seen a guy getting interviewed about 3 weeks ago, and he was texting on his phone the entire time, and I would have probably asked him, do you need to go somewhere? Is there, I've charted out, if he wasn't on my show, but you chart out that time for somebody, that hour block or whatever it is, you think they would have done the same. And I'm not able to answer the phone. He was legitimately texting the entire time, and it was pretty bad. So I it's okay to keep busy. You remember your host might appear a little more busier than you, because they're looking around, they're fielding questions, they're pulling questions from emails, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever they're broadcasting from. We broadcast from Twitch, Instagram. We broadcast everywhere, and so I'm always getting questions. I gotta Ask Me Anything board set up for Indie Vote radio listeners. They send in questions live. They can't see the show, but they can hear it. So I'm constantly going through those, and those get bombarded. So sometimes I do look a little scatterbrained and appear scatterbrained, because sometimes you get questions that just kind of take the air out of you. It's like we got one question last week if Rob was doing steroids, and I'm like, I don't want to ask him that, but yeah.
That's it. It's all natural, baby. It's all natural. Don't be hating on me. Don't do it. All right, guys. We are at the 2-hour mark, and I try not to make any of the panels go further than 2 hours. Plus, I'm sure you guys got stuff to do. Luke Stone says that I'm down. Check your inbox. Pixel Trader says Meredith got Brian's tassel spinning like a propeller. And we got an LOL from a Facebook user. We must have done something right. People showed up. People asked us things. And
that was Dave Brown with that LOL. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm not getting, like, for some reason, half the things aren't showing on since Facebook's been having issues. So I'm not even able to see the comments on my actual live stream right now for some reason. Mm-hmm. So if you did make a comment on live stream, I'll answer it off there. I'll come in and I'll make sure I make it right, and maybe we'll bring it up next time. That's it for tonight, guys. Believe it or not, we've had a great conversation. I'm sure there's more to cover, but this was like, and I've said this with the panels, you have to understand these aren't basics. You're coming in with people who do this a lot. We're giving you very in-depth answers. You learn from it. That's what panels are for. We're doing a whole show about panels this Sunday. It's PanelCon for the first time ever. We're just going to do panels. And at the end of the day, you're all welcome to come back and talk to me and the crowd, more importantly, that shows up about the importance of panels and what they've done for your life. Before we go, everyone, tell them where they can follow you. And, of course, you can follow me here because you're on my stream. So one way or the other, you know who I am. But let's get to everyone else. And we'll start with Brian K. Morris because the LOL makes sense for him to be on. I'm just playing shuffling the game right now. There we go.
Okay, if you want to keep in touch with me, go to the Rising Tide Publications page on Facebook or to risingtide.pub. Anyway, on Rising Tide Publications, we have new content every day. Plus, you have an opportunity to sign up for my monthly newsletter, which the next issue will go out April 1st. And we're going to talk about how the current medical crisis is affecting us and everyone else. Plus, we have guest editorials and a secret link, plus a lot of inspiration, a lot of things to read. So anyway, check us out on Rising Tide Publications, plus every Monday and Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Central, I host a show called Nevermind the Furthermore. You get points if you know where I got that title. And also on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Central Time, we do one called Clever Title Pending, where we discuss creativity and the business behind it. So anyway, I'm Brian K. Morris. Thank you for listening. And never apologize for being awesome.
That's right. All right, I'm Meredith Lochran, and I am with Geek Insider. I'm also head of the Lady Geek section. We're launching our podcast. We've got a YouTube channel. We've got a Facebook. I am shamed. I don't have any promotion for Geek Insider with me at arm's length, and I just wanted to be present and in my seat. But I do have Rob's sticker, so I'm going to promote you for a little bit there. For anybody who wants to get in touch with me, you can reach me at meredith@geekinsider.com. We have a Geek Out Virtual Con coming on April 11th through 12th. We are lining up people for minimum 15 minutes to get on air, talk about your stuff. We are building up the vendor profiles. So if you are a guest, you're going to get a profile page with links to all of your stuff, whether it's your Kickstarter, your social media, your YouTube channel, it could be your online store. There's no charge. We're not charging anybody for this. We just want to promote you because we know that times are hard, and we have a platform, so we want to get the word out that we definitely support indie creators of all kinds, from artists, comic books, filmmakers, gamers. We have we have Q, which is a game that you can get on your phone. And so like I said, if you want to get in touch with me, meredith@geekinsider.com. You can go to geekoutvc.com, and that'll get you to our virtual con page.
And finally, my good friend Varian, do you want the technical difficulties, or do you want me to put up the other thing?
Well, here, I'll actually, here's what I'll do. I'll share screen. Hold on.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
You think I'd have been like prepared and had this all set up, but
well, I just don't want that big screen up there and people turn off. Oh, I guess the show's over.
Yeah.
They have a problem. That's why I'm trying not to put your thing.
I'm sharing screen. Yeah. So Yeah, you can find me at Varian Grant on Facebook. Also, you can find me at indievote.com, which my site is loading very slow right now. I don't know why. But indievote.com site, again, started that last couple years ago. We cover indie comics, indie music, wrestling, just a lot of stuff, indie film. Right now, and we always say at the bottom of the page, we've got Indie Vote Radio, which you can access through an app on Google, or if you have iOS, you download an app called Streama, search Indie Vote Radio on there. You can find it. Also, you can also listen on our page, right on our homepage. You can also request songs on our homepage too if you want to hear a particular song. Our Indie Vote podcast, our shows are available on Indie Vote Radio as well. Indie Vote TV, which is on the Roku. If you want to watch some indie movies, we got that for you. And then just reach out to us any way you want. Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. We always answer emails as well. IndieVoteLive@indievote.com.
Oh, is that it?
That's it. That's it.
That was a sudden stop. Like,
yeah.
I felt like hitting a wall.
He did that to me too. I was just like, go on.
Yeah.
Lie to me and tell me I'm pretty. All right, guys, we got a ton of other panels coming out next week. Maybe Varian will join us later. We're going to talk about diversity and sexual representation in comic books at 9 p.m. tonight. I'm sure that's going to be a train wreck, but we're going to try to survive it either way. Anyone's allowed on that show, but we ask people to be respectful, and I do reserve the right to not answer any questions. Because I do not, like Brian K. Morris, there are certain questions we will not talk about, especially if there's no winners in debating it or talking about it. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to bring a question, understand to be respectful. Don't try to set us up with a trick question. I don't fall for them, and I don't deal with them. So that's it. We're done. Thank you all for being part of this amazing panel. Everyone has been part of. Jax is saying hi to everyone. Here you go. At every panel we go to, he jumps up. He jumps up and actually gets on the mic. Hey, say hi to everyone.
Hey. Hi,
Jax.
All right, kiddo. We're getting out of here so we can go play. Thank you all for being part of Halloween. All right, we're out of here, guys. Thank you for all being part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.